Hi, this is Pam with ROC Metaphysical. We're doing another interview. So to know ROC Metaphysical, it's all one word, ROC Metaphysical. It's an online metaphysical magazine. You can Google it and find it, or you'll see it down below. I have people that write articles on all kinds of metaphysical and spiritual topics from all over the world. And I like to say that they voluntarily do this because they believe in what they feel, think, and know, and they want other people to have a greater understanding. So I think that is so interesting to me that they're willing to do that. So it's a monthly online magazine, and the reason why we're on this video is we're interviewing Carole, who's an author and also a psychic medium. And she does, if people know what Lilydale is, it's a spiritual community kind of south of Buffalo that in the summertime predominantly, but now they're getting very techy and they're doing things on Zoom that Carole has done classes down at Lilydale, but she also does a lot of her own work. So we're talking to Carole, and is it Obley? Is that how you say your last name?
Obley.
Obley, okay. And so she's written a current book. That's why we're talking to her, and it's called The Art of Sensing. So I've kind of done my little speed reading through and made some notes. This isn't just a book about how to be a medium. I mean, that was my first thought. Oh, it's a book about mediumship and tuning in. And if people don't know what mediumship is, I always like to kind of give people the words and understand. Mediumship is the ability to tune in to things or people or energy on the other side, the veil, another dimension. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to look at it. Uh, Speaking to friends and loved ones who may have passed over and they can still speak to us. And Carole is a person who can hear or sense or feel those people if she's sitting with a client. So the book is about learning. And so maybe I'm going to let you take over because I don't want to give my point of view, that I'm going to have you talk about it. So the overall view of the book is to what, Carole?
Yeah, first off, thanks so much for having me, Pam. Really appreciate this opportunity. The inspiration for the art of sensing came from many years, 3 decades to be specific, of working in mediumship and hearing people, clients, ask multiple questions about the not just the spirit world, their loved ones, but about their own soul. And so the inspiration came from hearing these questions over and over, particularly, and I call this the $1 million question: what is my purpose in life? That is the number one question. After 15,000 readings that I've done, I'm very grateful and blessed to be working with spirit and with the spirit world. But I also do a lot of life guidance with people. And the inspiration for the art of sensing came from wanting to demonstrate or illustrate what I've learned about this soul's sacred journey um, on the earth and also in between lives. I don't talk a whole lot about that in this book, but I've certainly seen that through multiple sessions. And really, the desire to have people understand that through difficulties, life's challenges, which we all have, no matter what form they take, relationships, work, health, knowing, about or trying to understand spirituality, to help people understand that there's an internal guidance system that every one of us has. It doesn't cost anything, and it's relatively easy to tune into. And that internal guidance system is intuition. So the art of sensing is about opening that, following that, and importantly, trusting your intuition, the guidance that the soul is speaking to each one of us.
So when we come into this earth plane and, we're born and we come here and we're trying to live our lives, and we all have intuition. And, for they say with women, you get that gut instinct, or as a mom, you just know what's going on with your kids. And I do believe we all have that sense, that intuition, that we can kind of follow that. So it's really connected to your soul. Is that what you're saying? That the soul is kind of the one that's allowing that to occur?
You're absolutely correct, Pam. The soul is the soul's perspective is very, very different than the ego's. The ego being an extension of our rational mind. And I might add, and I talk about this in the book, the personality. We have these things. Each of us has a distinct personality. That's what makes us the unique individual who we are. But the soul's perspective differs in that it's mainly concerned, I would probably say only concerned with its own evolution. And to that end, the soul is always guiding us towards what is going to open up and support our evolution as that divine being who we are. Because the truth is, we are not our rational brain. We have a brain. We're not our body. We've all heard this sort of thing. We have a body. We're not the body. And we have a personality. So those things are not bad. And I would never, ever demonize them. I think a lot of quote New Age teachings have kind of demonized the ego and all of that and emotions. But they're absolutely necessary as servants of the soul. And the soul can use those vehicles, including the body, to advance its evolution. Now, when we're in the middle of those things, when we're in the middle of challenges, most people do not understand that. They don't, they just know I'm not feeling good. I'm suffering. My emotions are all upset. I just lost a job. I'm devastated. So all of these common human experiences, the ego sees as some sort of defeat or, a crisis. But here's the cool part. The soul sees crisis as an opportunity to awaken.
So I had my son, well, I don't think he'll ever see this, but he's a young man and he's, had some challenges and he feels very defeated. And I keep telling him that change the way you look at it and look at it as an opportunity to know more. And then if that opportunity arises again, you'll be like, wait a minute, that already happened. And if I don't do the thing that I did before and make a different choice, then I hopefully will have a better outcome. And we talk about this quite a bit. And what do moms know? But hopefully I planted a little seed in there. So to go, and I always have these questions. So the soul is really, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it like connection to higher power? Like it's my string that connects me, like my soul. It's me, my physical, my soul, and then soul is connected to spirit. So it's like my lifeline.
Yeah, I like the way that you stated that. Well, it is definitely a lifeline, but the soul is spirit. Now, that's a spirit with a capital S, as opposed to a spirit that I'm communicating with, or, an individual soul in the spirit world. What most people call God, I call spirit. So we are spirit. That is our core. That is our essential identity. All the other things, the personality, the ego, our thoughts, our emotions, those are sort of icing on the cake, right? So the substance of who we are is that divine soul that never perishes, that is eternal, that is always connected to higher source, higher power, as you stated, um, and it is indestructible. So therefore, the soul really does not engage in suffering. It's sort of the observer, if you will. The observer, well, let's see, you're having an experience, to take the example of your son that you used, you're having an experience of, losing a job or not maybe knowing who you are in life, what direction do I go into? The soul observes that and sort of just goes, mm-hmm, but doesn't get attached to it. And incidentally, that's the value of practicing mindfulness, where it's sort of a misnomer because we're not engaging the mind, we're going above it and becoming the observer of our life experiences and our thoughts. And so by doing that, we can detach from kind of the drama of the situation and say,
Mhm.
okay, I'm having an experience here. And what is going to arise from my soul's guidance from that experience?
Oh, I love talking about this kind of stuff. So, so part of the book, connecting to higher wisdom and a guide for staying true to your soul's journey. So I wrote that down. So the book is divided into three sections. So I don't
Yeah.
know if you want to kind of talk about each section kind of briefly, so people will be like, oh, I need to get that book so I can have a better
Yeah.
understanding.
Well, it's in all of the books I've written, and the previous books, a lot of those dealt with mediumship and transcripts from directly transcribed from the multiple readings that I've done. But in all of these books, the common denominator is, and including the art of sensing, practical, easy exercises to help people, and that's the third section, to really help people put this knowledge or, I'm reading a book, okay, that's all well and good. How do I use this? How can I use the information to change my life? So, and then to feel more connected to my inner guidance, to my intuition. So I do include helpful exercises, and those are in a lot of the chapters. This is not a big, thick book. This is simply written, as all of my books are, pulling it down, making the information very accessible for people to use in their own life. I always feel, if something is not useful or practical, what good is it? So we want to look at improving the quality of our life to avoid confusion, getting lost in emotions, and to hopefully lessen. I don't know that we entirely eliminate suffering in many forms in our life, but to lessen suffering in our life. So for me, it's really important for readers to know that there are these useful exercises, very simple, don't cost anything. You can do them at home, you can do them out in nature, to be able to use some of the guidance in the book. And I do call it a guide because I'm the first one to admit I certainly don't have the answer or all of the answers. What I share in all of my books is what I have directly experienced through working with spirit in a very intimate basis. So, then there's also information about people. When I started the interview with you, I talked about the most common question, what's my purpose? So there's a chapter on Soul pods, pod is also means groups. And these are also called rays of the divine. And so soul groups, basically, they share a common theme, such as teachers, healers, um, you know, somebody who is like a rebel. I mean, some of the groups have kind of, you know, easy to, or sometimes a little silly names, but it really gets the point across that this is what this group is about. Because so many people go, I'm interested in this, I'm interested in that. But why am I drawn to this in particularly? Is that the direction I need to be going into? So I give characteristics of each soul group so that people can have a intuitive recognition of where they may fit in. Now, that can be very limiting because most people have two or three groups that they
Mhm.
may sort of cross over and blend. So, and I do state that in the book as well.
Do you have a defined number of groups? Like there's like six
Well,
or 10?
I believe in the book there's 10, but there are probably more than I'm stating. I was going from my personal experience of what I've seen. Um, there are people who are, I call them system busters. This is what I mean about being kind of humorous. What are system busters, for example? Well, they're people who their purpose is to break up the old energy of, you know, our society, our culture, prejudices, things like that. So each one of the groups I break down and talk about the characteristics. And I'm sure readers will really recognize themselves through those qualities and they'll gain insight from that. Also, there is a whole chapter in the middle of the book on natural laws. And simply put, those are spirit's laws. No, they're not written down, in a scroll somewhere. But they are nonetheless very, very important in the soul's journey and for us to follow because they are in accordance with spirit's direction from our soul about what's going to cause us, what's going to put us on the correct path with the least suffering. And how can we understand, for example, the law of karma? Everybody's heard of karma, cause and effect. That's one of the natural laws. So, you mean what I create will always come back to me? Yes. And so I go into explanation of the seven natural laws and I give common examples so that people can really understand how these laws work in practical ways.
Well, that would be helpful because I talked to some people and they have, I did this and that, and then, things didn't work out very well. And I'm going, boy, I think you went around the wrong way to get the result. And, it didn't work out. And some people, and this is my perception, is that they don't put a lot of thought into if I do this, and maybe it's not the best way, and then it doesn't turn out right. How come and why? I mean, I was in a group yesterday where we were talking about, the energy that you put out and how impactful it can be, and how is it going to be with you, and how is it going to be with the other person or people. And it was a full day, and it was quite interesting. And this is like a continuation of this class that I was in yesterday, and also talking about the soul purpose, because we were all kind of wondering where we are in, today, and all the things that are going on and how we fit in. And people have been watching TV, and there's a lot going on. And we were very questioning about all that and how I fit in at this time. and we were doing some meditation on it to try to come to a better understanding. And now is probably a good time. So it's a good promo for your book.
Yeah, well, interestingly, Pam, I was inspired to write this from this is another inspiration for the book in this collective shift that we're all going through. I'm talking about the human family. And here in the US, the dramatic division that we have all experienced. I'm on this side, you're on that side. Um, I hear very few people talking about how to meet in the middle. So interestingly, one of the natural laws too is the law of polarity.
Hmm.
So meaning extremes. So I was inspired to how can we as human beings, as divine souls, really recognize all of this outer stuff, politics, gender, race, culture. How is that all the external or outer landscape? I talk a lot about the outer landscape and the inner landscape. The inner landscape being the soul, or the inner individual. The outer landscape, everything apart from that. And so I was inspired to show the difference there, the common bond that we all have as human beings, that we are all spirit. We are all here to learn, grow, and evolve.
Yeah.
And the artificial division that you were speaking of, and that I mean, you'd have to be living under a rock to not see it. Um, and it was very pronounced on social media. How can we transcend that? How can we come into that underlying identity of spirit and appreciate the differences, but not allow the differences to separate us?
Yes. I mean, I've had these discussions with people. And even within my own family, we have differences of opinion. Luckily, we agree to disagree, and we just put it aside and focus on something else. Um, but there's been a couple times when I didn't like it, and it was polarizing is one of the words you were using. And I think they realize that it's not gonna make our lives very happy if we're there for family dinner to have these conversations and not be respectful and allowing. And sometimes if someone has an opposing point of view, then maybe I can learn something. Again, it's a teaching moment. You maybe have a better understanding, greater understanding of that person's thought.
Exactly. We're always learning. My favorite expression is lately, I learn something new every day. And I don't care if it's a piece of trivia, oh, I didn't know that animal did that, or I didn't know, this went on in that particular culture, or whatever it might be. I usually learn something new every day. And I don't know, I put that in my memory banks. None of us really know, is that going to become useful someday? So I just kind of store it away. Um, and I did want to mention this as well. An important concept that I stress in the book is something that has been sort of misunderstood, I think, in the popular vernacular, and that is the concept of surrender. And surrender, a lot of times people go, well, that means you're a loser. That means that you're vulnerable, that you're weak. And so, what I discuss in the art of sensing is how surrender empowers us. So, it's sort of paradoxical. Um, when we surrender, we actually become stronger. And, the older I get, the more spiritual work I do, the less I understand with my rational mind. You might be the same. But also, the more paradoxical a lot of spiritual concepts are. And, in order to keep it, I'm a graduate of 12 step, by the way. I've written openly in my books about in my young life struggling with alcoholism and drugs and so forth. And that's been many, many years ago, over 40 years. But I am a graduate of 12 step. So a lot of the slogans in 12 step I find very useful and practical for everybody. And one of those slogans was, in order to keep it, meaning sobriety, I have to give it away. And so there's that paradox again. And what they meant was, I have to share what I've found with other suffering alcoholics, or people who are still struggling on the pathway. So I believe it's the same way with spirituality. In order to keep it, and A Course in Miracles, of which I am a student and I've studied it for many, many years. It's a very deep text, A Course in Miracles. Um, it talks about, and it says, and I'm paraphrasing, everything I give to myself. So if I give you something, whatever, it doesn't even have to be material. I'm really nourishing myself with that because of that natural law of karma.
Well, that's really that's a nice, well, I could call it a thought that if I'm giving, it's like I give, but there's something that, I guess grows within me that we understand that, it's well, I don't know, I'm kind of losing the words now, but I really love that thought that there's something that comes into me because I give to you, you or a collective you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the ego, and this is a good illustration of the difference, because a lot of people get confused about this, and that's why they get confused in life. This is a good, simple illustration. The ego sees, if I give you, say I give you $10, the ego perceives that as, you lost $10. Okay, to me, that's how the ego's perception is, because it only sees separation. The
Mm-hmm.
soul sees generosity. And because the soul is always operating, so to speak, through natural law, the soul sees increase of nourishment of myself. And I can tell you that I have directly proven this to myself. I engage in tithing every single Sunday. I'm writing out checks to charity, right? So, and all different charity, Habitat to Humanity. I give to a lot of animal causes, and you name it, I've probably given to it. Unity, that's another big one for me. Um, so I have actually gotten surprise checks in the mail. I mean, not huge amounts, but out of nowhere. And I'm like, wow, and I don't, that's not why I give, but I've actually proven that law to myself about everything I give, I also receive. And the law of tithing, it's really astonishing how
Well,
that works.
it's kind of like law of attraction. You're
Yes.
willing to give, so we'll say Abraham Hicks, maybe read a couple of those or watch some videos that if you give freely without any attachment, that you never know when things come back to you. So, and I love that if we did more of that, the world would be a better place. So there's my soapbox for,
Oh, you're absolutely correct.
yeah.
That is so true. I have seen this operate so much, not only in my life, but in other people's lives. And what does it cost us to give a compliment? What does it really cost us to be kind to somebody or, to help somebody. So, and again, that will come back. I don't know, I've read different sources, they say tenfold, that may come back 100-fold to us.
Mm-hmm.
But as you were saying, I think it's really important. Just do it out of pure motivation, pure, no agenda, no strings. And, because you want to help somebody, because the golden rule, right? Do unto
Mm-hmm.
others. And this is as simple as we can get. If I don't want that in my life, or I don't want that to happen to me, I'm not going to do that to another. And it's that simple.
Okay, so one part of the book you said was you give, well, you talk about surrender is like the second section.
Yes.
So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, again, surrender meaning not, well, I'm beat, I'm weak, I'm vulnerable, I give up, but surrendering to that voice of the soul, which is intuition. Now, the problems come in when our ego says, "You're kidding me. You're just going to do that and not know the outcome." Because the ego has a linear concept. Also time. The ego has time. Well, by this date, I want this to happen. The soul operates in a timeless way. It knows nothing about time. In fact, the earth plane is the only place where the artificial construct of time exists. In the spirit world, it's always now.
Right.
It's always right now. So surrendering, it can be done in the moment. That's all you have. That's all I have. That's all any human being has. Animals are great teachers of being in the moment because they're always in the moment. Nature is always in the moment.
Well,
It's
and I think as humans, we're so, I mean, well, I guess I'll talk about me. Like, I've got things to do. And I'm always thinking about the next, like not the now. Uh, and I find that I become so forgetful because I'm doing something here, like I'm chopping vegetables, but I'm thinking about, what have I got to do an hour from now, tonight, tomorrow, boom, boom, boom. And then I'm not paying attention and I've cut too many vegetables or, I've cut my finger because I'm not in the now. And that's kind of a focus that I'm trying to go, all right, I'm in now. This is this. And because I hate being forgetful, and then I think I'm getting really old. So,
I share with you with that experience. Um, my experience of mindfulness, which I also talk about in the book, came from an extremely very difficult time in my own life, and I sort of had a nervous breakdown. And so I was forced into, I found, actually, the book was given to me, and I know it was divinely guided, um, a particular book on mindfulness. And I was so dedicated to doing the meditations in this book to pull me back out of anxiety. I had terrible, terrible anxiety. Hard to even get out of the bed. I was frozen with anxiety. People can go in between anxiety and depression, rumination. Anxiety is always about the future. So again, from my own experience, I was forced into to get better, learning about being here now. And in this moment, is there really anything wrong? Is there some big, huge problem right here in this moment? And usually, 95% of the time, the answer is going to be no.
right.
But it's our mind that goes, you better prepare for that because that could happen. And then the ego is really based in fear. But we can use fear as a teaching tool. And I talk about that as well. How possibly could we use fear as, something that can help us. Well, I get into that as well. So, I've had the experience of driving and my mind is off somewhere else, Pam, and I'm like, how did I get here? So you probably had that too. You're on automatic pilot.
Right.
So very few people, unless they're really, really dedicated spiritual masters, are not in the now moment. We're always in the past or in the future. That's when problems come in.
Right.
The soul intuition arises in the moment. You're not going to find it back there. You're not going to find it up there. You're going to find it right here, right now.
Right.
And entering into that space of allowing
Right. And I believe
is
too, I'm sorry, that if you're thinking about past or future, there's no room for the intuition to come in. So if you're
that is so important what you just said. Yes, so important. And thank you for bringing that up because I have talked to countless people and they're saying, somebody, 10 years ago told me I was psychic or somebody told me this or that or, about being intuitive. Well, the fact is you probably are. You also have to hone that. I've taken many years of training from, mediums and internationally even. So, and I continue to take training because I don't want to rest on laurels. I want to keep improving and getting better. The now moment is where spirit will meet us. And that includes loved ones in the spirit world. They're not back there somewhere. The communication during mediumship sessions happens in the here and now. And that's always where spirit will meet you. Now that's mediumship, but also without mediumship, you can tune into that here and now of your own spirit in the moment. And that's really the value of becoming still. And I would say too, I mentioned about nature in most of my books, I've written about the healing power of nature. And nature operates completely independently of human beings because it operates in natural law and in cycles. So being out in nature can also tune us in because we shut down the phone, we shut down social media, we shut down the TV. We're out there walking, we're sitting underneath a tree, we're in a park, we're looking at a pond. That puts us into that now moment. And also the energy of appreciation and just saying, what a lovely flower. I happen to love all flowers. I'm a flower girl, but gazing at that flower and seeing spirit in that flower. And that can pull us into the now moment too. And something arises in us at that moment. And we're in that flower. We're away from the treadmill. I call it the treadmill of the mind because we're on that treadmill and we keep going and going, but it's not going anywhere. It's going in
right.
circles.
Wow. I mean, this is great stuff. So is there anything else about the book that you would like to highlight that would say to somebody, "Ooh, I need to really buy that"? I mean, we've covered a lot of great stuff, and I think but with your training and your background and everything, the book has really got a lot of insightful information. So,
I hope so.
wisdom
Um,
keeper is a nice way to say, you've been on this planet for a while and you've accumulated a lot of great information. Anything else in the book that you just want to give a little?
yeah. It's very easy to read. It's an easy read. People today are very busy. This is not a book where it's gonna take a year to read it. I mean, I wanted it that way. I intended it that way to keep it simple, to keep the exercises simple, and to explain sometimes very elevated or complex topics to bring them down and make them accessible so that people can go, okay, now I understand that. For example, natural law, most people go, what the heck is that? But I try to pull them down to really make them understandable for people. And it is available now, the official publishing date is May 1st, 2025. The book is available on Amazon.com, also through my publisher collectiveinc.com, and it's also on Kindle and ebook on both of those sites. You can pre-order now, and Amazon usually, in my experience, gets them out pretty quickly after the publishing date.
Right, and if they want to know more about you, what's your website?
www.soulvisions.net, soulvisions.net.
Okay.
And yeah, you can contact me through there. There's a contact form. All my other books are on there. I've also produced a at-home audio program for people to develop their spiritual intuition. And I have a meditation CD on there, and information too about mediumship.
Okay. And are you doing anything this summer in Lilydale?
Not yet. But I will probably be, Lilydale does off-season Zoom classes, and some pretty interesting topics on there. I will probably submit, proposal to teach through Lilydale. So keep an eye on them. You can sign up for free, through Lilydale to get their e-newsletters. And I also offer, Pam, this may be of interest to some of your listeners, a very, very affordable group mediumship thing. It's called Spirit Messages through Zoom, and very affordable. I want to keep the cost down so that people who might want to sample evidentiary mediumship, or perhaps don't have the resources to, purchase a full-length reading, can get messages from their loved ones through those. I usually do them quarterly. The next one is May 22nd. It is on my website under webinars.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate this, and too bad you didn't live in Rochester, because I think we would be meeting up, because I just love talking about this kind of stuff.
I
So,
think we would too.
yeah. And so The Art of Sensing by Carole, Carole, right?
That's correct.
Obley. So, people, I have to watch this video. I want you to go right out and get on Amazon and order a book, and keep an eye on her website for things coming up in the future. So I think we're done, and I appreciate all the information, and I can't wait to maybe talk to you after the next book.
Oh, you're probably giving me a message then, because
Oh,
yeah, I've already started the outline.
okay.
But as you probably know, writing a book is a huge task, and it's dedication every day at the computer. So,
It sure is. I know. I have a lot of friends that have written books, so I totally understand. So, all right, I'm going to say thank you. And
thank you for having me. It's been lovely.
yeah, all right. So we'll say goodbye, and I'm going to hit the button.